So with our strip till system, as we've talked about, perhaps overcomplicating some strip till equipment, and then trying to get to decouple that, or to make that easier to achieve. A perfect example of that is one farmer that I know about 10 years ago was conventional tillage. And so like the idea of strip till, conservation, that type of thing. So he had purchased a strip till bar that he was going to do his P&K application, nitrogen application with, and everything. It was a large machine, pretty complicated machine, but right off the bat he started deep banding his nutrients, and he's seen a huge increase in his yield. Right away, 10 bushel, just right off the top, and it proved to be very successful for him. So that type of machine was he was sold on it right away. So as he did that year in and year out, he also spent more time in the conservation side, doing more soil health practices, cover crops, less tillage overall. And so over that period of time there, he continued to do the strip till in the same method that he had been. Mother Nature comes along, gives him a wet fall, a wet spring, not able to do that complicated strip till pass like he had wanted to across all of his acres. So unfortunately, at that time, he decided to do some no-till that spring in rather poor conditions, but also was broadcasting some fertilizer and kind of going against some of the things that he believed in, but he had to get the crop planted. And what he found that fall is that his yields were not as different, or they were the same, like he had seen the decade previous. So kind of opened his eyes up, and he decided, well, maybe I need to revisit this, and maybe I don't need to be placing my fertilizer as deep or as complicated as what I was doing. So he did that research for a couple of years, and what he has found now today is he has gotten rid of that particular machine. He's actually went to a machine just like what we see here, the Strip Freshener CC. And so his system now is he is actually placing his nitrogen with this right ahead of the plant, and he's placing it very shallow. And so what that's gained him is time, horsepower. He has a lot less horsepower requirement, and his fuel usage has gone way down. So a lot of times we talk about conservation with strip till, and that's fantastic. But if we can continue to maybe shallow that tool up, or even reduce in our strip till system, reduce some of those requirements there, we can see a big benefit. And that gentleman has seen a big benefit, as has many others, and a growing number of people that are moving in that direction. So this is what we call the Yetter Strip Freshener CC. The CC stands for cab control. So more than a decade ago, Yetter introduced a strip freshener. And the original idea with that is to refresh strips that we'd already made. As we started using that, we started realizing that we can use that tool to actually make strips. So really then we've progressed, and a little less than 5 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we introduced this cab control unit, this CC model. So it's all the same features basically, except we've added a monitor in the cab that allows us to be able to control pneumatically the downforce, the performance of the row cleaner, and the performance of the rolling basket on the back of there. So all of the tools, all the parts of this is very intricate to make the whole perform like we want to. This is a very simple unit to operate. Especially with the cabs from the control, or the control from the cab, allows us to be able to change the performance as we're going through the field to match our conditions. So everything's on a parallel linkage. From there we have the row cleaner, the floating row cleaner up front, that allows us to be able to control the downforce or the reaction, the ride of that row cleaner. So very important there. Behind that we have a front cutting blade, and we've already moved the residue, so the cutting blade is actually just cutting our soil profile. At the same time, we have our depth gauge wheels on the side. So one of the things that we talk about with this type of a strip till specific, especially if we're doing it right ahead of the planter, is we want to be able to control that depth very exact. If I want to be 1 3/4 inches, I'm gonna set this to be 1 3/4 inches, and that's exactly where I expect that to run. Not 2.5 or anything like that. It's 1 3/4 inches. So the gauge wheels are very important on this. Then behind that, we have these shark tooth blades, and that's what's really doing the tillage. We've already cut the center line, but then when the shark tooth blades come along, that's what's performing our tillage. That's what allows us to be able to get extremely good seed bed, perfect seed bed across many different conditions. And then that's the perfect place to be applying any fertilizer if we are going to, liquid or dry. And then lastly is the rolling basket on there. And the rolling basket does play a very integral part, making sure that we finish off that seed bed, we squish out any air, and we make sure that we have a very consistent seed bed.